actually gonna train to be a priestess soon.
Ooh.
And I just wanted to hear your thoughts about when it comes to holding sacred space. How do you know when you're ready? And like, do you personally feel like getting some kind of training is required? Or do you feel like just going in and learning from experience is the best way?
Oh, such good questions. I wish I'd had asked those questions myself before I started all this. I don't think you're ever ready. So I think we can procrastinate forever. So I don't know that you ever really feel ready to do it. You just kind of have to do it at some point. But I do know that there comes a point, you do know when you're not ready. Like the summit. I was talking to a client today, like right before this. And, I knew that I couldn't pull off a summit a year ago. I wanted to. I knew what I wanted it to be. I knew some of the speakers I wanted to have. I knew it's exactly what I had in my head, what it is this year. But I knew last year that I did not know enough. Like I didn't have enough of the tech skills. I didn't have enough of the connections. I didn't have my own business like solidified enough to pull it off. So like I knew that I wasn't ready for it last year. And then this year, when I started doing it, or when I was thinking about doing it, I kind of sat with it actually. And I was sitting during, I think, day 1 of my period, just sitting there. And it was this idea that had come up a few times in my mind. And I sat with it and I thought, I know that there's more stuff that I'm going to learn, but I'm only going to learn by doing. And that was kind of the moment for me where I was like, okay, let's start. Just jump. So I feel like for that question of how do you know when you're ready? You're never going to be ready, but you know when there's nothing more you can learn until you start doing. And you just have to do it. Holding space is just about listening. It's really about, it's about the space. It's about giving women the space to think, to feel, and then think about what that means. Just giving them to become, you have to be the most comfortable person with silence in the room. Because everyone else will be thinking and processing and working through it. And you'll be like, oh my God, I have to fill up this dead space. Ha, ha, ha. You have to be so comfortable with silence. And it's terribly uncomfortable when you start. But this is one of those things that you can't do until you do. You just have to do it and take some deep, womb deep breaths and just sit there in that silence and let everyone think and process and come up with their own conclusions, really. And then allow them to work it out loud and think it through. And a lot of red tents have like a talking stick or a crystal or something that as long as you're holding it, no one else speaks. So it gives you that time where you don't have to feel pressure like someone's going to cut you off, because you have this thing, and as long as you have it, no one else can talk. So you can stop and think for a minute. And I really like that. And I've seen it work really well in red tents. So I would imagine that any kind of priestess training, I mean, there's so many kinds out there and so many different things, but some of them don't do like the practical education as much as all of the other cool and interesting and amazing stuff, but it's like the practical things that sometimes are lacking. So keep an eye out for that as you're going through training and stuff, and ask a lot of questions, like practical, how do I do this in real life questions. What was the other part of your question?
Do you feel like a training kind of program in general will better prepare you, or just by experience?
I think that depends on your life experience. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you've attended other red tents or other groups or circles or anything really, I mean, even going to I've used stuff I've learned at business conferences in my red tent circles, like exercises that we used in for our businesses that I've translated into red tent. So no, I mean, I don't have any formal training in hosting a red tent, but I have attended them, and I've been in a lot of women's circles, and I've gone to a lot of business conferences, and I've just taken all of that knowledge and braided it together and use it for my own. And, you know, nothing is permanent. And you can always start doing something. And then if you feel like you're stagnating or you feel like you've reached the end of your knowledge well, you can go take training and keep, you know, it's like being a doctor. You should always be learning more. You should always be doing more training. So, you know, I know the next things I want to do. I know way down the line the trainings that I want to take and the things that I want to do and the courses I want to learn from. And you should always be learning and using that. So I don't think that, I know I've never asked anyone leading a red tent if they were certified or if they'd taken a course or a training. I've just always gone. I don't think you need it. And I mean, I know you don't need it to start. And as you go through, you know, I think you find things like, one of my friends does a sisterhood circle, and it's online, and it's like a Facebook group, and she has a guest speaker once a month that talks about things. And she asked me to be a guest speaker, and she let me actually stay in the group for months. I'm still in there actually. And it's a red tent. She calls it a sisterhood circle, but it's a red tent. It's amazing how it works, and everyone talks, and she does card readings once a week in there, and she just posts, you know, a picture of 3 cards, and everyone comments on what one they feel drawn to, and then she interprets the cards, and it's a really cool circle. But she's not a red tent facilitator. She's an energy worker. Mm-hmm. And that's the perspective that she comes from. And that's what I like about red tents, is that there's so many different perspectives. You can do them from any background. Like I've seen red tents that are Christian-based red tents, and they just talk about the female saints and the women in the church and the stories of the women. And I am in no way, shape, or form religious, but I just thought, oh, hey, I never thought I'd see that day, but there it is, and that's pretty cool. You see some that are educational, and they have a guest speaker that comes, and they do a guest speaker every time. You see ones that have potluck ones, like food-based ones, which are my favorite because I love food. But you see those. You see ones where they do crystal work every month. So everyone brings their crystals and their yoni eggs, and everyone sits together and recharges their eggs and clears them out. And so there's so many things that I feel like a good red tent is an extension of what you love and what you want to learn. Mm-hmm. And you just kind of get to dive into those 2 subjects, because you're always going to, you know, and you evolve. And as you evolve, the red tent will evolve, because you'll always be learning new things, and you want to share new things, and you have new knowledge. And that's what I love about them. Everyone's is different. Even month to month in the same red tent by the same person, they can be different. So I think there are just so many different combos that you can do, that as long as you still love it and you still love doing it, because they are work, but as long as you love doing it and you love doing the work and you love the results, then you'll evolve, and you should. You absolutely should.
Yeah, that actually leads to my next question. So I think what I went to was a red tent that I've been to once. I go to a lot of like sistership, like women's circles, and I think the one I went to that was a red tent felt like all the other circles. So like, what makes a red tent a red tent?
Well, it's a very loose terminology now. A red tent historically was when all of the women were bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
because all of the women bled at the same time for the most part. There are stories of the women who would bleed on the new moon, and they were typically the wise women or the witch or the healer of the tribe. And I think that's because all of the women would go to the red tent, and that one or two women that were not menstruating but were ovulating were probably the ones like distributing the herbs and doing the hot compresses and, you know, baking the cookies, whatever, before cookies were invented. But and then when they had their moon, the whole tribe could take care of them. So I think that's sort of how that balanced out. But a red tent really was where women went and just free bled. You know, they bled directly into the earth. They had like a nice fire in the tent. It was like a nice warm, you know, maybe not quite a sauna, but it was like a nice warm space that the women would just go kick back for a couple of days. And they brought back messages to the tribe. And that was that sacred duty of the red tent, was to go to offer their blood back to the earth, to prevent bloodshed of the men in war. The idea was you would have to fight less battles because you were saturating the earth's need. So you would give your blood back to the earth. You would prevent, you know, hopefully prevent conflict. And we know now that women menstruate, that the left and right hemisphere talk the most. The synapses fire the most between the two hemispheres during the menstrual phase. And we know that our gut actually influences our nervous system. About 80 or 90% of the information that goes into our nervous system is from the gut up, not from our brain down. So we know now that all of the left, the right hemisphere, and the gut brain are really talking to each other the most when we're menstruating. So we've got all this logic, we've got all this creativity. We're very objective during this time because of it. So we can really see the big picture in a way that no one else can. Wise women, maybe, simply because of their experience and their no longer menstruating calmness. But we can see things in this bigger picture, in this bigger problem-solving capability. And we can really answer why the problem, like, why are these things happening? Why is this going on? Why? So we're really good at all of that. Now we know that. So it makes perfect sense to me that women would come out of the red tent with the next vision for the tribe. Like, here's where we're going to go for the next month. This is what we're going to do for the next month. This is our plan and our vision for the tribe. And they were the messengers for the tribe. We don't have that anymore. We don't all bleed at the same time. We don't have a patch of dirt to go just free bleed for a couple of days and have everyone else bring us food and what we need. we don't have a tribe to bring the message back to. So I think of a red tent now being sister circles and moon lodges, which are the same thing as a red tent. Historically, it was just the Native American version. The moon huts, all of those things were the same thing historically. And now it's just up to us to reinvent them in this non-tribal society that we have. So I think we're in the process of reinventing what the definition or the difference of a red tent would be. I mean, you could say it should be done on the new moon. Like, if you were just doing it on the new moon, it would be a red tent. But we're a full moon right now, and I'm still calling this a red tent because we're going to talk red tents, and it's an open space for any woman to talk about periods, menstruation, PMS, anything that's coming up with their cycle. It's a safe place to talk about how the things relate to our hormones. And, you know, I keep my red tent focused on the menstrual cycle. So while I don't do it necessarily on the new moon every month, though I try when I'm not traveling, I do try to keep that focus on blood. So I don't know, probably should do both. You should probably at the new moon and focus on blood, but we can't always get what we want. But I think if you want to call it a red tent, you know, call it a red tent. I think it comes down to what you're comfortable with. You know, I could have called it a moon lodge, or a menstrual hut, or any number of things. But, you know, the red tent is what I think more people are familiar with. And you know, it's periods. So it's a kind of a no-brainer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And you literally do have to wear all red, right?
When I'm bleeding, I do. Well, I don't always, but when I'm bleeding, I always wear something red. That's my little ceremony to myself. And when I attend an in-person red tent, I do. I have a couple red dresses that I wear. And, you know, not everybody has all red, but we do our part. The last red tent I went to, one of the girls came and she didn't know about it. And I had on my red dress and I had on a red scarf and I had on a red belt and I had on some red socks. And I was like, here, take my scarf, my belt, and my socks. Accessorize. So she did. But, you know, but that's like, that's the idea for a tent, is to, you know, teach and help a woman feel comfortable and to feel like a sister in the group. We show up the best that we can, but we showed up, which is 90% of the battle. So yeah, I mentioned this in the video. My friend Greta does a red tent in Los Angeles, and she has a big red cloth, just a huge, long piece of red fabric that she uses, and she lays it around the circle, and everyone sits with that cloth. And some women use it as like a blanket, and some women just like tuck their feet into it. But it's this connecting red thread for the whole circle, which I told her, I was like, I'm absolutely stealing that. That is a beautiful idea. And I want to continue that. I think it's a beautiful tradition. I want to, like, anytime I attend a red tent, I'm going to, you know, if I can, buy a giant piece of red cloth and bring it and just gift it to that red tent for them to use forever. Or, you know, if I start my own in-person ones, we're going to do that. So I just thought it was such a brilliant idea that I loved it. And I was like, I think this is something that should spread. I think it's a great idea. And we're sisters. We're all sisters. And every tent is like a chapter. So I love the idea of spreading ideas from chapter to chapter, so to speak.
Yeah, me too. And speaking of periods, so I've been reading The Optimized Woman by Miranda Gray. Are you familiar with her book?
I've heard good things. I haven't read it, but I've heard good things about it. Well, I've heard about it anyway. Okay.
Well, it says, like, you know, for each week you're going through certain emotions, and then it tells you the best way to optimize that. The thing I found is that mine doesn't match up with how I feel.
Yeah.
So how am I supposed to, like, keep track of it or know how to optimize it?
How are you different from what she says?
Like, during the creative phase, which is the week before your period starts, you're supposed to feel very like self-explanatory, you know, creative, where like, you know, you're just like bursting with creativity and just want to create and you're inspired. And yeah, but I don't feel that way at all.
Oh, I don't either.
Feeling very like lazy.
Me too.
And I just want to chill and do nothing.
Me too. Yeah, that would not be the system for me. I know there's lots of women that have books out there and everyone has their system, and that's not how I teach my system. And I've definitely, you know, there's some, you know, even the seasons. I've seen women who have systems out there where the way that they describe the seasons that go along with the phases differently to the way I teach them. I took mine directly from Chinese medicine. Because I've been taking Tai Chi and Qigong, so I've been using that Chinese energy work for like decades. So for me, that was really comfortable and I really liked it. And it made a lot of sense to me. Even the way that they say that the luteal phase, the time between ovulation and menstruation, has two elements to it. It's both earth and metal. It's late summer and fall. And I think that's great because the hormones in your luteal phase do this little roller coaster. So at the beginning of the luteal phase, you have like really low hormones. And then halfway through, your progesterone reaches its highest point in your entire cycle. And then it goes back down. And I thought that's so genius because it's like you're going through late summer and you don't feel that different after ovulation. you might get like a little lower, but you don't feel too terribly different after ovulation. But then you get this really amazing feeling of the progesterone, which is calming and kind of, I mean, for lack of a better term, it's like smoking a giant joint. It's just like you feel calm, you feel good, you're mellow and relaxed. It's a really feel-good hormone. And I was like, and that's going into fall. Like you feel good and the air is crisp and you just feel awesome about things. And then you come back down and go into the menstrual phase. And I thought, isn't that brilliant that Chinese medicine and the Chinese wheel, while not having the scientific ability to see hormones and know how they work, they still knew that after ovulation, there was this wave. And so they had put 2 elements and 2 seasons into it. So I thought that was really beautiful and I really resonated with it, which is why I chose that system as part of my teaching. Mm-hmm. But I know women that teach it differently. I know women that teach the luteal phase as winter, I think, whereas I teach the menstrual phase as winter. So I know women that teach it differently. Those aren't the books that I'm going to pick up and read.
Yeah.
They're just not, they don't resonate with me in that way. They don't make sense in my mind. But that doesn't mean that there's not an entire group of women that makes perfect sense for. Mm-hmm. We're just so different, So, I think that I teach that in the luteal phase, we want to nest. We go through a wanting to wrap up things, like we have all these projects and we want to finish them off, and we go through this little burst of energy with that progesterone rise. We just kind of want to wrap things up. We want to finish off the projects and get things taken care of and get things done. But we turn our attention to our homes, to our nesting, and we want to make lists like, oh, this is all the things I want to do for the house, and this is the grocery list I really want to get done. And, I was thinking about doing this for the backyard. And we start making all these little lists, and we start wanting to nest and watch Netflix and cocoon on the couch and drink hot cocoa. and that's how I teach it, because that's how I feel about it. And the women that are in my community resonate with that idea. They also feel that same way. So for them, it makes sense. And I think if a woman ever came to me and said, I feel really super high energy and creative during my luteal phase, I'd say, you should check out this book, Optimize Your Cycle. That one's for you. I think it's just, we're all different. And some women just feel things in different combinations in different ways.
Yeah. And when you track your week, I started my period last Wednesday, mm-hmm. and it lasted until Sunday or Monday. I don't know when. So does that mean my week ends on Sunday, even though it was only 4 days, or does it end yesterday?
Well, it ends on when you stop bleeding. So when you're charting, you generally do either you sit down at the end of the night and you chart that day, or I do mine in the morning. So the morning I wake up, I chart yesterday. So if you bled at all, you would chart that, and that would still be in the menstrual phase. But we feel our hormones. We feel the hormones start to rise while we're still bleeding. So you usually feel like you're moving into the follicular phase, and the energy of the follicular phase is that springtime growing. So you usually feel that start before, but for the sake of charting, as long as you're bleeding, that's part of the menstrual cycle. And then the first day that you have no blood is the first day that you would mark the follicular phase.
Okay, so it's technically not a full week then, right?
Wednesday was day 1?
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you bled on Monday? So you had a little bit of blood on Monday?
I can't remember.
Yeah, that's okay.
Actually, yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I mean, the menstrual cycle on average is 5 days, give or take a couple of days. If you're in the 3 to 7 range, you're totally normal. Mm-hmm. And that's not having it be an exact amount of time, as far as that's concerned, like being 5 days on the nose, is not nearly as important as the blood being a beautiful red, not having any clots or chunks or anything in it, just being really clear, really beautiful, bold, bright red. That's what you're looking for. And that's what's more important than the length of time. That being said, if it's like 2 days or if it's going past 7 days, then you may want to look into some imbalance.
Okay.
Yeah. And the weeks aren't a week. I know we say a lot of times menstrual week, ovulation week. Ovulation is 3 to 4 days for everybody. That's universal. 3-4 days tops.
Mm-hmm.
That's as long as the egg is viable. So no one has a 7-day ovulation phase.
Yeah.
So it can't be a week. It's 3 to 4 days. Does that make sense?
It'll be 28 days.
Yeah, we consider an average to be 23 to 31 days.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going outside of the 23 to 31 day cycle, I want to see what else is going on. Are you having other symptoms? There are women that have shorter cycles, and that's totally fine. They're still ovulating. They don't have any other symptoms. There's no other bad stuff going on. Great, fine. They just have an abnormally short cycle or long. That happens too, especially for athletes. Athletes tend to go into that 35-day range. But it's fine because they don't have any other symptoms. So, there's abnormalities for sure. But if you're within that 23 to 31 day range and everything is going well and there's no mood swings, there's no PMS, there's no pain, then great. It doesn't have to be 28 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And I'm jumping around, but going back to red tents, so like, I don't have many friends here, and the friends I do have, they're not into this. Mm-hmm. They're still in the phase where like they think periods are weird or disgusting, which is like really sad.
Yeah.
And I try to like educate them on it, and I try to show an example by me being open about it, to show that, it's okay to talk about, but they still find it to be weird. Like they even think like yoni eggs are a really weird concept, which I can see why they think that.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that said, how would I get people to show up to my red tent? Like, I know there's meetup.com. I could post a Facebook event, but I don't know how else to get people.
Yeah. Well, first of all, kudos to you for being strong enough to be the example. That's hard to do, and I'm super impressed. Like, good job, sister. That takes courage and guts. So, round of applause.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are some good ideas, actually. In LA, there's a couple of meetups that are, you could say, very weird, like sisterhood circles and tantra circles, and like really kind of out there in like the woo-woo land side of things. So meetup would be a good place to look. But where would you look if you were looking to join something? Where would you go to look?
Probably Facebook.
Then start there. Start a Facebook group and talk about it on your Facebook page, and hopefully it will spread. Make it, don't make it open, but don't make it secret. What is it? Private, I think, is the listing, so people can see. And just put your location and red tent or sisterhood circle, or however you want to phrase it, so that you think you'll attract the people that you want to come.
Okay. And do you believe co-facilitating a red tent is a good idea to like get started and for people to get to know you? Because like there's a group of young women here in the Bay Area that do red tents every month, and they already started a Facebook group for like women in the area that are interested in this. But I don't want to go in and like steal their thunder or like come off as if I'm trying to use them to get like my foot in the door, because that's not what I'm doing. I just like want to get people to come, but it would be the same people. Does that make sense?
Well, what is the flavor of their red tent?
It's very like sisterly, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I don't know how else to describe it.
How will yours be different?
I don't know. I haven't thought about
That's
that.
what you need to figure out. That's going to be the difference, because you're not going to attract the same people.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing a priestess training, then your flavor is probably going to be more of that. So what is the training? What are the things that you're learning? What are the tools and the skills and the techniques that you'll be using to lead your tent? That's going to be your difference. And that's what you want to be emphasizing.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
When you said that, it just came to my mind right away. Mine would be more goddess based, like, not like inner goddess, like buzzword kind of thing, but like actual goddess, like seeing her as a deity, and how, you know, celebrating our menstrual cycles and how like that's kind of honoring her in a way, and less like general new age spirituality, I guess.
I love it. Yes, I totally get that. That's fantastic. Yeah, and and you know, like the Christian red tent that I read about, there are ones that just, they have a different goddess of them, you know, each month that they learn about and talk about. There's, you know, the goddess oracle decks and all those kinds of things. And I mean, you could even do something like that where it is literally a goddess theme, and you can expand your knowledge, because you could do research before the tent and, you know, be like, this is going to be the subject of our red tent this month. We're going to talk about Isis, or, you know, Freda, or whatever. You know, there's a world full of them out there, and, you know, do some little research in there, and you know, really bring it through. Even, you know, like bring a little snack that's kind of based on that region's food or whatever. You know, like, you'd have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, that's a
food
really,
nerd.
Yeah.
Everything comes back to food with me.
Yeah, that actually leads to my next question about when it comes to knowledge about like menstruation and all that stuff. Like, do you feel like you need to be an expert or have like a good standing knowledge before you do a red tent? Or is it kind of like you learn as you go? Like, is like Wikipedia it 2 weeks before the red tent good enough?
Well, I wouldn't do something based in that if that wasn't where my expertise lies. Like, I wouldn't lead a red tent based on witchcraft, because I have no concept of how that works. And I wouldn't want to give somebody like misinformation and screw up somebody's energy, you know? So I would definitely go with do what you know, and bring in guest speakers for the things that you don't. You know, if you want to do a red tent where, like, I went as a guest to a red tent, and I often teach charting, like how to chart. And I answer everyone's period questions while I'm there. So I do like, I go as a guest teacher to people's red tents fairly frequently, and I teach them, you know, I do that period stuff, or I teach women about their hormonal balance and their cycles and how to chart and what they need to know and those kinds of things. And I do that because that's where my area of expertise lies. Yeah. Don't, you know, the one thing you'll never go wrong telling somebody you just don't know, but that you'd love to bring a guest expert in next month to teach about that. And then you go hustle your little butt off and find one. But you can never go wrong doing that, you know? People, you know, there's so much knowledge out there in the world of periods and the science and the studies. And I get questions sometimes, and I will point blank go, I need to go check my notes so that I don't give you the wrong information, or you know what, that's not my area of expertise. I'm not super positive about that, but let me talk to a couple of my friends who are, you know, really knowledgeable in that area, and I'll get back to you. Or, great, I know who our next bonus teacher is going to be. Let me go call somebody and have them come do a guest class for us. So people way more appreciate you being the resource. Even if that means you're going to resource the expert and bring them to you, you know, because it's just something that instead of them sitting on Google for 10 hours going, I don't understand any of this, you can find a person who does, and then just bring that person to them and go, okay, here we go. I've brought you an expert. And then they don't, you know, people appreciate that so much more than anything else, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of experts, like I assume, you know, they do get some form of payment whenever you invite them. Like, what is the general rule of thumb that they should be getting?
That is so different. If your red tent is free, then I think asking somebody if they would come and just donate their time is acceptable. If your red tent is free, you're carrying all the expense anyway, right? If you have a really low cost red tent where it's like, you know, bring a dish to pass as entrance, or, you know, give us $10 to help with, we'll supply food, but it's, you know, $10 just to help, you know, help me buy food. And like, I'll bring hummus and veggies, but like, it'd be great if somebody could chip in. If it's low cost, or if it's something like that, I think asking people, hey, you know, it's a free red tent. It's really about the community, and it's really about just bringing in the education and stuff. You know, ask them to come and tell them that they'll get a free glass of wine at the end of the night or something. But if you're charging for your red tent, then look at what you would pay in proportion to that. So if you're, you know, say you're charging, for the sake of even numbers, say you're charging $50 a person for your red tent, and you have 4 women coming. So you're making $200 for the red tent, and you have a guest teacher coming in, asking them if, hey, you know, can I pay you a quarter of the door? Like, can I give you $50 as payment for being in this red tent? I think that's perfectly acceptable. But, you know, just ask and talk to them. You know, I've volunteered to just teach at red tents for free because I love what I do, and I get to talk to some rad ladies that I would never any other way get to talk to. And I get my chart into their hands that have my website on them. And I, you know, it's a whole new group of people that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten to hang out and talk to. Now, if I'm super crazy freaking busy and I don't have the time to take on something, then I'm perfectly comfortable saying, I'm so sorry, I don't have time to do that unless you want to talk about a payment. I'm busy right now, and I can't really do anything for free at the moment. And I think you'll find that when you're talking to people, experts, people who have been doing it for a little while, they're really comfortable saying, oh, you know, if you call me in 3 months when I have more time, I'd be happy to do it for free, but I'm crazy busy right now and I just don't have time to do free stuff. Or, no, I don't do free things at all anymore. Here's my fee. I mean, I've gotten that. I've had people been like, yeah, I'm happy to do it. It's $200. That's my speaking fee. I'm like, okay, great. Thanks. Good to know. We'll talk in a couple of years. But that's fine, because then, you know, and it's, you know, it is what it is. And everybody, you know, people have their own things, you know, some people are willing to do it. Some people aren't willing to do it. So it's just ask, you know, and if you are charging, and it's not just like you know, help me cover costs expense, like, you know, in Los Angeles, there is no free room. That doesn't exist. So you're usually paying like a rental fee for a space. So if you're just like asking for $20 because you need to spend $200 to rent the room from everybody, then I would ask your experts to donate their time. If you're charging more than that, though, I would offer to pay your experts at least a portion of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are good things to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I've seen all sorts of different combinations. So, you know, and none are right or wrong. I love the idea of the red tents being a space where no woman's turned away, but I also don't want a facilitator going bankrupt to do it. So, you know, you gotta you got to take care of yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. And that's true for the facilitators. So.
Great. Well, thank you so much for answering my question.
Totally. Of course. Absolutely. I see Sadiksha muted herself, but if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to pop in and chat with us, please feel free.
Oh my gosh, that was prepared and really great questions. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, those are good. Totally.
Yeah, I was not prepared at all. I just came up because I saw the email. Good. I'm glad you popped in. Perfect. Awesome. All right. So I wanted to wrap this circle up with a little bit about sisterhood and stress and how that affects us as ladies. And I just wanted to kind of mention that women have a different stress response than men. Women don't have the fight or flight stress response. They have a tend and befriend stress response. So when women are stressed out, they tend to isolate themselves because it's, we're not supposed to show weakness. We're not supposed to tell other people our problems. We're not supposed to be a burden. All of these things that we tell ourselves to kind of hide and stay quiet. And it's important to note that that's not good for your stress response, because your stress response is to go find help, talk to other women, find a sister, befriend. So you have to take care of yourself. You've got to tend, and you've got to befriend. You've got to find people. And I want to bring this into a little bit of the scientific studies so that it can be kind of grounded. And that is that when we are stressed out, our body, we have cholesterol, and our body makes pregnenolone out of cholesterol. Pregnenolone turns into 150 different hormones in your body, your stress hormones, as well as your reproductive hormones. What happens is that when we get stressed out, we take cortisol and we steal it. So instead of making progesterone, we steal it to make more cortisol, which is our stress hormone. So when we are stressed out and we're not taking care of our stress and we're not relying on our sisterhood and our tribe and our people, we are actually stealing from our womb to make stress, literally. So I wanted to use a little bit of this circle to just impart that knowledge and share that with the world, and also to reinforce this idea that we do need to learn from each other, and we do need to support each other, and we do need to use the sisterhood. So I thought a red tent was kind of the perfect space to have that conversation and talk about that. But yeah, use your sisters and don't steal from your own womb because of the taboo that we're supposed to be strong and perfect and, little houses on the hilltop made of ticky tacky. We're supposed to. We evolved with each other and to rely on each other. So use that in times of stress. Find somebody, no matter who it is or where they are, but find somebody that you can talk to and vent to or chat with or whatever it is. So I thought that would be a nice kind of way to end the circle tonight. So let's take a moment. We're going to put our right hand over the womb, the left hand on top of the womb. Kind of sit up straight and relax the shoulders. Close the eyes. We're going to take a deep breath in, bringing chi in from our third eye, in through our third eye. And we're going to take it down into our womb space. And then we're going to let it just infuse that womb space. And then we exhale. We're going to push any stagnant chi, any icky, gross, gumming up the works, anything that's just not supposed to be in that womb space, out through the very tippy top of our head. It's the zenith point in your meridians. So clean, clear, purifying chi in through the third eye, down into the womb,
clearing and getting out any junk, any stagnant chi out through the top of the head. So just nice deep breaths in all the way to the bottom, and exhale all the way through the crown of the head. And keep that vision going. And as you're doing that, start thinking about your womb space and how that energy is infusing the womb space, and that glowing ball of light, that chi that's in that area, is filling up that whole abdomen from your belly button all the way to the base of your pelvic floor, your pelvic cradle. Big ball of light. This is our lower dantian. And keep doing that breath. Keep cycling that clean chi in and getting rid of that ugly chi, stagnant chi, whatever it looks like for you, out. And then start letting that chi just sort of infuse your whole body. Just feel it glowing, feeling it move through your body, through your meridians. These energy channels, much like veins, just coursing through your body. And just let it look like whatever it looks like in your mind. And let it start to just glow until your whole body is just aglow with this beautiful, healing, clean, clear chi. And then start connecting your womb space and let that chi reach out to the other wombs, to the other sisters that are in this thread tent with us. Whether you're watching it right now live or whether you're watching the replay later, we're connected. Time and space is a man-made construct. Don't worry about it in this space. Just let that energy go from womb to womb, connecting us sister to sister. And then let it grow. Think about the sisters in your life, the women in your world, whether they be physically close or maybe far away. Start letting that chain of womb to womb connection expand. Let it take over your whole state, your whole city, your whole continent. Let it go until your entire world looks like there's this glowing net, womb to womb, encircling the entire world. Imagine those sisters that are way up on the poles or way down on the poles. Imagine those sisters that are around the equator. Imagine our sisters in the far-flung regions of the earth in this net, being supported by us, bringing them some beautiful chi deep into their womb, deep into their being, giving them whatever energy they may need. And we're going to let that net, that connected sisterhood, stay there. Just let it disconnect. And just look at that beautiful globe circled in this beautiful net, womb to womb, sister to sister. And start coming back, bringing your attention into your womb and feel your womb as part of this beautiful world, this beautiful net, holding all of us together. And bring that nice deep breath into your own womb. And start bringing your chi into your own womb space. Envision your lower dantian, the space that encircles your womb. And envision that chi coming in through your third eye. And now that beautiful marble or ball or however it looks to you is just perfectly full of a beautiful chi not over full. It's not under full. It's the perfect amount. It's exactly what you need for a beautiful night of sleep, to charge for the next day, to heal for the night. It's perfectly charged for your day, ready to go, no matter where you are in the time of day. Take in 3 more deep breaths, just being in the space of absolute perfection. And on your last breath, keep your eyes closed, but just start moving that pelvic cradle, maybe giving those shoulders a little roll. And just start moving. Feel into that womb space. Give that pelvic cradle a little rock. Maybe front to front, side to side, little circles, whatever feels good, whatever feels like you need. And then release your hands and wiggle your fingers and your toes. Maybe roll those wrists. Loosen the neck. And then just let your palms come, palms up. Just let them rest on your thigh. Take one more deep breath in to close the practice. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Beautiful. Perfect. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely evening. We'll do this again next month. And I will see you guys soon.
Sounds great. Have a
Perfect.
great night and see you next month.
Yay. Bye, ladies. Thank you.